Welcome to the December 19th Village Board regular meeting. This meeting is now called to order. We'll begin with the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Trustee Bazemore, Trustee Codman,
Present.
Trustee Herrera,
Present.
Mayor Garrity, present. So this evening, it is anticipated to be our last village board meeting of the year, and it is a very special meeting, not just because we are wrapping up 2018, which means we have quite a lot on the agenda actually, but also because we are going to say thank you so much to our friend and colleague who has served on the village board for over 7 years, Deputy Mayor Trustee John Codman. And because it is such a special evening, all parties involved have agreed to sit tight for a moment on the public hearing, and we're going to begin with some remarks from some very special guests that have joined us this evening. So why don't we start at the top? Sandy, that would be you. Our New York State Assemblywoman has joined us this evening and wanted to be able to share some remarks.
Thank you so very much. John, you've done such a great job for the Austin community. We're just so thankful for all of your good work on the board. But before that, working on the comprehensive plan, which probably got you started in all this. I'm not sure. I think it probably did. That was like a yeoman's task, I'm sure. But it helped. In your position as a village trustee, being involved in that. And you're involved in so many other ways in the community, especially right now with the Elks Lodge, bringing the community music, which is a little different than your job here, I guess. And, you've had the liaisons with the police department and the fire department, and so you've just been involved in everything in our community, and we're certainly going to miss your good work. But I have a feeling that we were talking before, even though you might not have Wednesday obligations, you may have obligations on other days of the week that bring a new delight actually to your life. So on behalf of the assembly, we don't have days like they do in the county of Westchester and other places. We don't have days. And we don't have huge proclamations. We're just the state of New York. We think we might not be in such financially good shape this year either. So, but on behalf of the Assembly of the State of New York, I do have a citation for you, John, and this is just to wish you well and thank you for a job well done for the Village of Austin. Thank you.
I was going to say maybe we should all just get down there and because we're going to be jumping onto this bandwagon, and then when we join John and Sandy and invite our friends up. Here. Very nice. All right. Next up, Legislator Borsha, please join us. You're the next.
Okay, here I come with my big proclamation for John Codman, who I have known for many, many, many years and been involved in many, many, many projects with him. And although I am here to honor you for your service to the village specifically and all the work that you have done in your roles in committees and as a member of the board and most recently as deputy mayor, I do want to say thank you to all of the things you have done for our community and for our county. And we know that that is going to continue on into a bright future. I do have a very large proclamation that's in a frame, but we do buy them in bulk. And I also want to say on behalf of my colleagues, we have resolved that the text of this proclamation honoring all your good works is going to be carried to the County of Westchester for all people of goodwill to forever know, and that we are going to proclaim Friday, December 21st as the Honorable John Codman III Day in the County of Westchester. So I especially hope your family can enjoy that.
Well, we have the smallest proclamation, but your name is the biggest on it. So that's really important. Um, yes, Trustee Deputy Mayor Codman, I've known you for a lot longer as John. And I have to say, our kids grew up together. They spent a lot of time together. We did a lot of carpooling together before all of this fun stuff happened. And I know that you have been, in addition to being an excellent village trustee and representative of the people, you've also been a fantastic father and companion to our previous town supervisor, our late town supervisor, Martha, who we miss greatly. And you continue to be a great community member. We are so proud that you have been able to represent us so well for this many years, and we look forward to your continued involvement in both the village and the town. Oh, right, I also want to mention that we, because we have all this overlapping taxes, we didn't want to use the big frame, for in any case, we're very, very grateful for your service and wish you all the best in your next adventure. And that's on behalf of the entire town board.
Our handheld mic is not functioning well tonight, so we all get to come to the podium, including you, John, because I imagine you may have a couple of words you want to share. I hope you do. I have always, for the last 6 years that I've served, John has been a constant presence on the board, as you preceded me by 14 months, and we have voted largely together, though not always together, I'm going to miss you. It's been a real pleasure to serve with you. Thank you. For those of who know you well and have spoken with you about what serving your community means, it's something that I know you feel very deeply, and it's very, very personal and integral to who you are. And that shows through in your service. So thank you so much. I'm going to read pieces of the proclamation. Whereas John Codman III has been a member of the Village Board of Trustees since 2011. During that time, he served as deputy mayor for more than 4 years, having been appointed by both Mayor Garrity and Mayor Hanauer. John served as liaison to a number of committees over the years, including the Ossining Fire Department. He was also instrumental in establishing the Ossining Arts Project in 2015 and has remained an integral part of that committee. Whereas John is a member of the Ossining Elks Lodge and founded Jazz at the Lodge. Lodge nights are held there, excuse me. John also served as chair of the Comprehensive Plan Committee before becoming trustee. We are fortunate that John and his late wife, Martha Dodge, chose Ossining as the community where they wanted to settle and raise their 2 children, who I'm so pleased are here with us tonight. So tonight, we wish to thank John for his many years of dedication and service to the Ossining community. We are truly grateful for the contributions he has made. Now, therefore, I, Victoria Garrity, Mayor of the Village of Ossining, on behalf of the Board of Trustees, residents, and merchants of the village, do hereby recognize John Codman III and proclaim Thursday, December 20th, 2018 as John Codman III Day in the Village of Ossining and urge all our residents and merchants to join us in honoring him. Thank you.
On camera. Thank you, everyone, for all the recognition. I first want to thank my children, who, as we were discussing earlier, missed a lot of Wednesday dinners with them, but they were always supportive of me and my my activities with the board. So I'm certainly thankful to them. I'm thankful to Jane Botticelli, my partner, who's stood with me, been my treasurer. She's heard me say so many things and listened to me, and I've always appreciated that sounding board. Um, I know that Martha's looking down on me now, knowing and appreciating uh, the time that I put in, and she's always in my heart every day. I want to thank all the colleagues that have worked with me over the years. Um, the board that I sit on now is completely different than the one I started with, so I had the benefit of learning from many different perspectives and many different views, and I was blessed to work with all of them. I want to thank all the managers that I've worked with over the years, and all the folks that run the village, all the employees of the village of Ossining that work every day to make this a safe place, to make everything run, everything go. You know, I did this for them as much as I did for the taxpayers and everybody else. But it's an amazing place, Ossining, and every day we get up and it goes and it works for us. And so this has been an honor and a privilege, and one of the greatest chapters of my life. Thanks so much.
I'll keep it really brief. I didn't really prepare anything. But as you guys know, both of our parents have served for the amazing town / village of Ossining. And I just wanted to say how proud we are of you. We're so, so proud. And I know we tease you about you missing all those nights of dinner with us, but I know you've been using that time to make great change and improving everyone's lives. Sorry. So I just wanted to say we're so, so proud of you. You always told me, you know, we might not be able to change things on a national level, but we can change things right here. So I'm really proud of you.
I guess I just wanted to say one thing. It's just something that I don't know has always rung with me that you've always done is like even if you don't know what to do, as long as you're doing something, you know, I'm sorry, things will always come up and appear out of nowhere where you least expect them, and it just helped me a lot. So thank you.
John Codman. John, I just, I really, it's amazing. I've known you for so many years, even before I joined the board in 2014, and had my quick 9 months, and then had the privilege of returning back to know you in so many different capacities. And it's amazing how close someone can get to a person in a year. This past year, personally as a colleague, during my campaign, it's amazing how you have challenged me in ways that I appreciated and ways I did not appreciate. But all of that has really shown to me what a great father, leader, friend. I do call you a friend. And as Mayor Garrity said, I'm so happy that you and Martha chose to stay in Ossining, and not only stay in Ossining, but give so much of yourselves and your talents. And I know that Ossining is so blessed for that. I want to thank you for sticking to your ground and always being that independent thinker. In politics and in government, that's never really easy thing to do, but that takes a lot of guts and fortitude. I think that it's a big loss, but that the work you've done is going to live on in Ossining for years to come, and that legacy of standing up for what you know is right will always be here. I'm a little excited / concerned about Citizen Codman, but I know that we'll see you. I know that we'll see you, a lot. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And Ossining is better because of you, and I'm better because of you. So thank you.
John, I can't say I've had the privilege of knowing you since 2011, but I can say that ever since I've arrived on the board, we've sat next together, and I have counted you as a friend, a man of reason, a man of compromise, but most of all, a man who's compassionate. And I appreciate you for that because when it does come to government, we don't use words like love, right? But you're definitely a compassionate leader. Um, you've always, whatever it is, whether it's the fire department, whether it's Austin Arts Council, or whether it's legislation, you are really here for the people, and we can tell, or at least I can tell, that you're very committed, and it's definitely going to be a loss. We've had a lot of conversations. Um, when I first arrived to the board, I was like, "Oh, I want to do this. I want to do this now," and it was always good to really have someone there say, "Hey, let the political process work its way out. You can't do it all, in the first year." And I definitely appreciate you for that. And there's definitely going to be a missing link. So I definitely want to thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board, and good evening, Deputy Mayor Hodman. My deputy, Dale Ferreira, regrets that she couldn't be here tonight, but she knew that I was going to say something and asked me if I could include her in my remarks because we both feel the same way. It's been an honor and a privilege working with you and for you the past 7 years, and we appreciate the support and confidence that you have in our work. And we've most enjoyed our special time together working on the budget with the entire board. All those hours in that room have really been something to remember fondly. I'm going to, I'd say I'll miss your phone calls on the vouchers. But as a resident, the vouchers are going to still be posted on the website. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. And and I hope you'll ask for us if you ever come in to pay your taxes or water bill. And for sure, I've told my staff until such time if it moves over to the police department, if you come in for your overnight parking hardship exemption tag, that they're supposed to come get us to process it for you. Thank you.
So, John, I was here when you started as a trustee in 2011, and I can say there have been many that have been as passionate or thorough or businesslike as you. No one's been more. And I think that if in my recollection of your tenure, if you're going to leave a legacy, I think it would be one as a champion of the environment. A lot of the projects that I've had the opportunity to work on behalf of the village have had an environmental component with an eye on efficiencies and green energy, etc. It's definitely been the wave of late and definitely the wave of the future. I appreciate that not only for those projects, but for all of our projects, you took the time to learn what we wanted to do. And hopefully you felt the same about our exchanges. Because that's important, because when someone takes the time to go from the bottom to the top of an organization and know specifically what individuals are working on and show them true support because you have a true knowledge of what they're doing, I think that's a true testimony to your character. So we've always appreciated that in Public Works in your tenure here. I'm sure that's not going to go away as a resident. And as I started, the projects, some of them come to fruition, but we have some on the plate, which I think we've talked about in the past. So as they're being developed and being worked on, and even when they're done, please stay in touch because you're one of the people who enjoy showing things like that too. So good luck to you, and we will see you around for sure.
Why don't you join us right here? Fight your dad. We'll fight your dad. So thank you to everyone who was patiently waiting bated breath for the public hearing. Thank you to everyone for sharing your remarks about friend and colleague. Going to be a intense meeting for you, I imagine.
Do this one more time. Let's go. Get it on.
Alrighty. So Madam Clerk, and I imagine we might get some words from Corporation Counsel as well.
Yes, we start with a public hearing in the matter of an application for a planned waterfront special permit by Plateau Associates pursuant to Village Code sections 270-23I and 270-54. Is there anyone here to address the board on this matter?
Well, sir, do you want to offer any context, or you just want to wait for? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. We can follow it up after we hear what the public has to say with regard to tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Zarin, did you want to?
All right. Good evening. I'm Michael Zarin Steinmetz, on behalf of the applicant. That was a very nice start to a meeting. I wish every meeting started on such a warm and intimate note. Congratulations, Steve. So Brad Schwartz was not able to attend tonight, so they sent the old guy. I guess the quick update, most significantly, I'm not sure, I don't know if everyone's aware, but the planning board issued final site plan approval on behalf of the project yesterday with 44 conditions, many of which I know will be of interest to this board, including this will be a LEED Gold project with geothermal, solar, 10% affordable, and in the resolution was a requirement that there be the mix of apartments based on the number of units based on the mix of apartments. The 1.5 acre public easement for attaching to the Crawbucky, and the applicant is required to install, pay, maintain trail connections from the Crawbucky to the easement area, as well as cooperate with the village in the future to connect the Crawbucky Preserve and the easement area to along other properties as they are acquired by the village and made part of the preserve or access to the preserve. We are also required to work with the village engineer to TV mainline the sewer to assess possible relining or possible rebuilding or repairs to that overall line. We are required and committed to upgrade the pumps and emergency generators to improve the pump station, as well as perform testing of the pressure coming out of the pump station, again on behalf of the overall sewer for that entire area being upgraded. We're also required to complete the process with SHPO that we've begun in connection with the building, the office building. as well as cooperate and with any entities that might consider relocating the building if possible. And we have retained a well-known company in restoration of historic buildings that have done over 1,000 projects, 200 professionals to make that assessment, and that will be part of the SHPO process, as well as with the village. If the facility cannot be moved or relocated, then we are required as a condition to work with various stakeholders, including HPC, to refine and improve the design of the commemorative pavilion. As well as condition number 12, we must obtain all necessary approvals that may be required, including without limitation, the HPC to the extent applicable. I know there's been some discussion at the board. The applicant does not believe that a certification approval is necessary, but we will work with the village and HPC, and that issue will get resolved if necessary within the context of this overall plan that we're involved in with respect to the building, with respect to the office building. As you may also know, the Environmental Advisory Council issued a recommendation of that the project is consistent with the policies and purposes of the village's LWRP on August 6th. The ZBA issued the 3 area variances on December 11th, and the secret findings were approved October 23rd. So at this juncture, respectfully, we would ask and submit that this board is in position to make a determination on the special permit, and obviously we would request your approval pursuant to section 270-54. I'm available for any further questions or comments.
Thank you, Mr. Zarin. Is there anybody from the public who would like to comment during the public hearing? Okay. I'd like to make some comments, and I have a few questions, and since our engineer and water superintendent are here tonight, they might be helpful in addressing some of my questions that arose after I did attend most of the planning board meeting last night. I wasn't initially there to view the meeting about Hidden Cove, but it was interesting, and something that really stood out to me that I'm a little concerned about, as you mentioned, the 44 conditions, which includes terrific things like the trail connection with Crawbucky, the sewer infrastructure. But one thing that had been recommended but was not included in the adoption was a request for water system infrastructure. And it was clear, but the one thing that was clear in last night's meeting, because it was stated by multiple members of the planning board, we really didn't understand what was being asked for in the request for the water infrastructure upgrade, or what the implications would be. So since we have our engineer and our water superintendent here, could either Paul or Andy, could you help us understand what was the recommendation for the water infrastructure upgrade and what it would mean?
Good evening again. Mr. Zarin outlined with his presentation there to include the infrastructure improvements on a sanitary system, which was one of the main things that we reviewed some months ago with our consultant engineer working on our behalf along with the applicant's engineer. Additionally, with their engineer, the applicant's engineer, we reviewed the existing water system, its condition, versus what we'd like to see the project was completed. And I'm just going to introduce it. I'll let Andy talk a little bit more about the details. But essentially, I'm pretty sure most of this board knows, but because they're maybe not as with the planning board process as a planning board member or zoning board member, we do interact and weigh in on ultimate on-site and off-site improvements that are either a subdivision or a project that impacts the area, surrounding area. um, which is our charge from the planning board. And in that review, potable water system in that area is compromised in some areas, and we wanted to make it as formidable as possible with respect to quality, quantity, and beneficial use for drinking, fire protection, etc. So that said, Andy will go over a little bit of the details now, but that's what the mayor was referring to. That and I won't exactly say it wasn't adopted in the resolution, because what did make its way to the resolution, from what I'm getting back from our consultant, is notes on there with respect to the site plan approvals relative to water, sewer, and the like. Still have to be ironed out with the Department of Public Works and the village engineer, me, which is the case in all projects like this, prior to it making its next step to the building permit step, and then ultimately, actually before the building permit, would be the county Department of Health that would have to sign off on the water main improvements.
Good evening. So, a few of the concerns was water quality. It's an 8-inch main that would be traveling down North Water Street that feeds that future development. It's a dead end. So, as far as water quality, the water has no place to recirculate. And when we met with the applicant's engineers months ago, the suggestion was to loop it through the adjacent road next to it that feeds the houses right next to North Water Street. There's a 4-inch main that's existing there that's broken 15 times in the last 30 years. And that pipe is only 4-inch in diameter, and it's actually closed down to 2 inches in diameter. And that's an 1888 pipe. So it's whenever there's a break on that, we have to shut down the valving that shuts down that whole area. So, to have redundancy, to replace that main out with a new 8-inch main, have double the fire flow protection in that area, have better water quality, and have redundancy. That's what our thought process was.
Want to ask any questions?
Yeah, so, I'm so sorry. I apologize. I guess, my question about this is, when a decision gets made by a board like the planning board, and there are confusion amongst its members about a certain element that's either being requested or discussed, that leads me to believe that, well, that's not the way I make a decision. So, I mean, I'm not going to tell the planning board how to make a decision, but we're in a position here where we have to look at all the different elements of this. So I guess what I want to understand is what you're asking for. Is this something that the developer is going to take care of, or what are we talking about here? I guess I understand what the ask or what the issue is with the current water situation, that exists now. And clearly it's one that's broken. So I would want to understand, what is the best possible resolution of that, and then how would that be taken care of?
Well, just to use Harbor Square as an example, that water main that was installed there over 100 years ago, we required Harbor Square to replace that with a new 12-inch main. That was a cost of $1.8 million to Harbor Square. This is nothing like that cost. But Harbor Square came back to us and said, why should we invest this money that's going to benefit everybody in that area? Well, that's part of our job, that we're to make sure that we get the right infrastructure for the future. And we know that it's diminishing there. And the last thing I would want to see is a development to go in, and then we have an issue with the old water main. We have water quality issues where the changes have been made. The old main is still existing, the 4-inch main, and you get dirty water calls, and if there's any breaks on that we would have to isolate.
Just to append what he said about Harbor Square, it did benefit the entire area, but it was also a prerequisite to their building being constructed, because the necessary quantity of water needed to make its way down the hill for their fire protection. And there was a pressure issue as well as a quantity issue. in that area. And then the new main and obviously all the new runs and the circulation that were created in that area after the Harbor Square project was finished ultimately resulted in a better water quality as well. So and that's this is on a much smaller scale than their offsite improvements included. I think they ultimately bonded for, and when I say offsite, that means outside of the park area. That means all the improvements that they made outside of their property envelope was in. And Tom's here, so he might be able to correct me if I misstated. I think it was the offsite improvement bond was in excess of $2 million, maybe even $2.5 million. And that would be typical of how a project like this would be handled as well. There would be the requested offsite improvements, with Mr. Zarin listed there, and they would be bonded. In the event that the project didn't come to fruition, the village would still be able to do those projects because we believe they're needed for the area. And the second point was relative to the Harbor Square project was that project, along with a few others along the way with this planning board, there have been site plan approvals made with more of a general statement that says upon approval by the engineer or coordinated by the engineer was done after the actual site plan approval. And we did get into some of the nuances, but this is a little bit more than a nuance. This is, we're either going to do the water main improvement or we're not. So that's where we are now, I think.
Stuart, could you explain to either members of the board or the public when we're talking about off-site improvements and improvements for the betterment of the area, how is that accommodated for in village code? Is it appropriate?
It's a requirement under section 27052 for site development plans. Has to be for the best use, and it includes it includes adjacent properties. It's not just for the particular property that's involved. So, and there is a specific reference in the site plan resolution 270-52. It was read to the board last night, but that with regard to site plan developments, that makes it very clear, and it makes a specific reference to water and sewer in terms of the importance that has to be not just for the project itself, but for the adjoining areas, and for basically the best use, not necessarily what is necessarily the current use within the particular area.
Now, could you clarify for us, getting back to what is our charge this evening? Because we're looking at the special waterfront permit, which is related to the density bonus that would be permitted in this district.
Correct.
So we have the option to close the public hearing tonight. We could then take up a resolution and vote on it, or we could just close the public hearing and then we have a period of time and
62 days.
and we have 62 days in which we could then take up the resolution for a vote. I guess what I want to understand from the reason this would have been requested from the engineers is this, from what I'm hearing, is the water quality is a concern in the neighborhood and with the existing 8-inch main. Is there a reliability or health and safety concern if it's not repaired or replaced? Because you made this recommendation for a reason, and I'm not sure why it was dismissed in the version that was voted on last night. But
I think the reason, Mayor, and it may have been how it was presented, was at that point there was a thought that it only would benefit two homeowners on the upper plateau. And I think, and there was a discussion of a looping system, but the planning board, I believe, just having sat at the meeting and listening to the testimony last night, viewed it that it was just a benefit to these two homeowners, and that there was no indication there was an issue with the pipe, which is what we're, listening to Paul and Andy tonight. There are concerns. I think Andy said there were 15 breaks in 4 years, and that it dead ends. So that was something that, in terms of what happened last night, there was a specific reference that it was two homes, because you were at the meeting as well,
Yeah.
and they were mentioning that. But that was a point, because I know the specific reference was, there was a specific inquiry made about the water as compared to sewer with regard to that.
Right.
The board was pretty clear in terms of water and, you know, went into that particular direction.
Ms. Mayor, can I just address a couple of things that were said? Ms. Gurley is correct that condition number 30 does require us, the applicant should provide sufficient water service, sanitary service, gas service, and electric improvements to the reasonable satisfaction of the village engineer and consulting engineer to serve the project, not overburden the overall system. So that is something still that we need to continue to meet with and work out. It was discussed, and it was discussed last night at length, and I think one of the clarifications that maybe I can make, the project only discharges to the 8-inch line. The 8-inch line is what runs under North Water Street. And that was discussed with the village, and that sufficiently handles and can handle the demand of the project. That's a set-alone system, standalone pipe, 8-inch pipe. It runs and services would service the project in the existing commercial. The 4-inch pipe that we're talking about that Corporation Council mentioned is a completely separate that goes on Solitude Street that the project would not even discharge into. It's not connected and services independent residential. So it was the feeling of the board, the planning board, subject to further discussion, as I mentioned, under the condition that the project doesn't impact the 4-inch pipe. If there are problems with the 4-inch pipe and the water quality, and because it is a smaller pipe, and the 15 breaks that they're talking about is that 4-inch pipe that's unrelated to the project. So the project has nothing to do with that 4-inch pipe. And that 4-inch pipe doesn't service any of the establishments along North Water Street. So I would respectfully submit that under 30, condition 30, we'll continue to discuss it with village engineer and other persons, but the project doesn't impact that pipe. That might be an issue, but respectfully, it's not the project's.
Thank you, Mr. Zarin. I would like to hear from the engineer because you're telling us the engineering, and I'd like to hear from the engineer on what that actually is.
Yeah. No, I'm happy and I appreciate Mr. Zarin stating what he said in the beginning, where we have to work that out to the satisfaction of Public Works, because ultimately we can go back and forth all day, but again, as they once they come to construction document phase, that has to go to the county health department for approval, and they're going to look for this stuff anyway. It's really best practices. But just for a point of clarification, the reference to discharging, we were kind of like mix and matching the two different utilities that were looking for improvement. The discharge from the site would be a sanitary sewer discharge onto North Water Street, and then out to the pump station and then to our force main, which is already in the language which was adopted last night for them to TV, which they're actually doing now. And then maybe or maybe not line, which is actually a requirement from the Westchester County Department of Environmental Facilities to help Westchester County as a whole combat their I&I problems that they have with all their joint wastewater treatment plants. That's something that we adopted in our stormwater code when phase 2 started with Ms. Menastra, our former planner, and we've had some really successful I&I work done by developers since we started doing that, and it's helped the county a lot, and they appreciate it. That's something that we're looking to do here. It might ultimately it could end up in just some spot repairs if full lining isn't even a requirement, but that's to be determined, as some of these other things are. But the reference to discharging is for sanitary sewer. The 4-inch line referenced is a potable water line. There's nothing going to be discharged there. The impact of the site, I guess impact could be maybe the wrong word, but what it is, it's the surrounding area, and best practices would dictate that you loop the system wherever you can, and you replace something that is in the condition that Mr. Teese had explained earlier, in dire need of restoration or rehabilitation, full replacement. So that's what we're referring to there. So that we really, when he was presenting, we were covering two different utilities: sanitary sewer and potable water systems.
Could you just stay for 1 second? Because I think that when you reference best practices, my understanding is right now we have 2 dead ends in that neighborhood. The 4-inch line dead ending on Solitude Lane and the 8-inch line dead ending where Hidden Cove would be and the businesses that are existing.
Yeah.
Can you explain to lay people why is it better to have a loop? What are the benefits and the improved dependability and safety redundancy that might come from that versus a dead end of
Sure,
the system?
Andy will stand up and start approaching me if I misspeak. But basically, by looping the system, the water moves around, doesn't become stagnant, and you maintain a chlorine residual in the water is what you want to have for the potable water. Because sometimes on a dead end, if the water sits there too stagnant, you won't have the chlorine residual, and that subjects the water to becoming contaminated. That's why you see us, the distribution crews out there flushing on the overnight a couple of times a year, and those are the areas that they do it particularly well and often are the dead ends because they typically have stagnant water, so we have to keep it flushing through the system. And the looped system will mean that the 2 people that are tied into that 4-inch main now, if they don't draw enough water through it, or say they stop drawing water through it for a long period of time, there won't be stagnant water in that 4-inch main anymore because it'll be looped through it will become an 8-inch main tied into another 8-inch main on North Water Street.
I guess, and I misspoke when I used the word discharge. I think Ms. Grillo explained it. But the question is, should the applicant be responsible for what is an over $300,000 replacement of the 4-inch that services those 2 under an existing condition? That if the applicant was to just continue to use the 8-inch, that's in fine shape, and I believe everyone would attest, and that's the water line that currently serves it, it's fine. And that wouldn't impact the 4-inch any differently than exists today. It's not as if the project per se is going to have any adverse effect or worsen or change the condition of a 4-inch line that services 2 residents.
So, Mr. Zarin, what the point you're making here makes it very clear to me that there's not consensus or agreement on what that very vague language that exists on subject to approval by the engineer. There's not a consistent understanding on what that would include. And as far as what's fair and what's appropriate, my understanding is that the potential expense for creating a loop, which is the best practice for how we have our water, and it would actually be beneficial, I believe, probably for the people who would be at your proposed development to have preferred water system that would be a loop rather than a dead end. I'm feeling like there aren't a lot of people here to speak at the public hearing. We can probably close the public hearing. We have 62 days to continue to have these conversations so that there can be some clarity so that all parties are understanding what will be expected in that approval process.
Well,
no, I'm not actually asking for your opinion on that.
No,
I know what your opinion on that is, Mr. Zarin. I'm proposing that to my colleagues on the board.
Well, if I could just, I know you're not asking for it, but I think, I would like to offer that if you were to vote on this, it's still a condition of our site plan approval. It has to be resolved before we're able to obtain approval.
Understood.
So I
Understood.
would request, and
I understood, and it's certainly not going to be resolved this evening.
No,
but the fact that we're so far apart from resolving it makes me reluctant to take away the one contingency in this site plan approval process this evening. I don't think we're ready to do that. I certainly am not. I am comfortable with closing the public hearing this evening, and so I'd like to hear my colleagues on the board your feeling about closing the public hearing. Do you feel it's important to vote on the resolution this evening, or can we wait until a future meeting?
Am I on? Okay. This was very helpful. Andy and Paul, thank you that insight. And I'm actually with the mayor that when it comes to best practices for our water, it's not only beneficial, whether the case is to the neighborhood, but it's really a win-win for all when it comes to our water. As far as process goes, though, the conversation we had tonight was more of what had already occurred, right, in the planning board as far as the water concerns. So, and at this point, we're kind of just internally here at this board, kind of just discussing to assure that they meet that condition when it comes to the water concern. That my understanding.
Well, the granting of this permit before this board, the planned waterfront special permit, is a condition of site plan approval, and in fact is written onto the site plan. So that has to be granted by this board. So that's one of the discussions in terms of what this board wants to consider. You are correct in terms of what the planning board did last night, but this board still has to provide that approval, because that provides that would give the bonus density which the applicant is seeking to build at Hidden Cove.
And the condition has to be met regardless,
No
right?
issuing of the permit.
No.
Well, there is a condition
when it comes to the water concerns.
There is a condition with regard to what they have to do, and the exact language is being final. There was an agreement last night in terms of what the language is, but in terms of what that means, in terms of what the village engineer views it as compared to what the applicant views it, that's where we have a gap, because there is a question as to whether or not there should be a looping system or not.
So even if we approve, so let's say, and I'm not saying that we're doing this tonight, but even if we close the hearing and approved it, that still would be something that has to be resolved. That has no actual plan right now how it's going to be resolved.
Right now, well, talking about water, not
Water,
sewer.
yeah.
That is an issue that requires resolution.
Okay. Thank you.
You know, as I said before, you know, anytime you hear about a decision being made where there was doubts in the members of the individuals that are making that decision, that causes me concern. I think that you know, with prior projects, these things are a lot more defined in my mind, and because there is doubt here about what the commitment is to do the best practice. I'm not comfortable. I mean, I'm happy to close the hearing, but you know, there's also a sitting trustee who's a sitting trustee who's not here to vote, and there's also a new trustee that's going to be coming in next year. And frankly, I don't feel like I have enough information now, and based on what I consider to be, you know, a conflict in view of how this is going to be resolved. You know, I wouldn't be comfortable on voting it on the resolution tonight. You know, I think it needs to go to two new trustees who are going to be sitting in these chairs in January, and allow the new board to make that decision.
So, beauty about letting John speak is he kind of says where I was going. Typically speaking, when it comes to special use permits, we've had to do a couple of renewals. And then just thinking in past meetings, the projects have seemed to be tighter. Like there's a lot of talk today about water and loops, and my mind is kind of like, oh, okay, like I thought everything was fine, right?
It is.
So, so you say. But however, so definitely, I don't think anyone's in favor of voting on this tonight. Now, whether or not to close the public hearing, looks like you guys want to close it.
We could keep it open for written comments through the end of the, you know, some given date. I don't know, at the end of the year or whatever makes sense.
I'm okay with closing it.
Okay, I'm not gonna.
People can always come and talk to us.
Yeah, but I would rather them come talk here than side conversations. I mean,
They could, if it comes up as a resolution, then they could always speak during the resolutions too. So
I guess it's all about timing, right? Because everyone is holiday shopping, and when we get around this season, I always kind of feel odd about having public hearings. I always feel like if we extend it to to January, at least the holiday feels over. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I would have no problem going to the next, not the reorg, but
Yeah.
whatever that following is. Particularly because there's all these questions. That's just me. That's the only reason I could say it should be extended, given this is a holiday season. Whatnot. People get very passionate about housing in this community, and to have a public hearing week before Christmas. I don't know.
Well, it is the second week that we've had the public hearing, and we did have some people come and speak last time. I don't feel super strongly about closing the public hearing. It just seems like we could. Is there anybody else? Like I said, I don't feel super strongly. I'll go with whoever feels the strongest.
I mean, I think the public will have a third opportunity to input, as you said, when the resolution is brought up for a vote, right? So that's a third opportunity, which would be next year, right? Since we're not going to actually vote on the resolution tonight. So I mean, I'm either or. I mean, I'm not against closing it tonight, but if my colleagues feel strongly to keep it open, that's okay too. So.
Well, you know what? We don't even have to make a motion quite yet because I see there's a member of the audience who would like to speak during the public hearing. Welcome, please.
Good evening. I'm Jane Botticelli. I live at 18 Susquehanna Road in Ossining. I'm a member of the public. I am not on any of the boards, including the HPC. I just have been observing and listening to this process for some time now, and I urge you not to close the public hearing. I agree with Trustee Bazemore that this is the week before Christmas and the holidays, and there are a lot of folks, that really maybe don't realize some of the issues that are presented by such a development. We're talking about more people living down there. It's 137 apartments. That's not 137 people. That's more than that. It affects Crawbucky, the access to Crawbucky, the access to the river. There's only 2 roads that lead down there. There's so much of this project that I don't think a lot of folks in the community are aware of and might want to come down and address before you. And I was particularly concerned when Mr. Zarin mentioned that they are not sure whether they need to be certified by the HPC. And I believe that's the law in this community. And I sense an argument there and an issue and people may want to have the chance to come forward and talk about the office building and what in fact the HPC is and stands for and why it exists, if not to pass on something like this. And anyway, that's my feeling. But
thank you very much, Ms. Botticelli.
You're
a
welcome.
very timely comment.
Thank you.
So I move that we leave the public hearing open
So
until the next.
January 16th would be the next. The reorg is the second, and then the next.
That would be your first legislative.
Next
Right,
legislative
but
meeting.
there'd
That's not
still
the
be
reorg,
there
yeah.
would still be you'd still have a work session, in January before the next public hearing, so there'd be an opportunity for the board members to I mean, I wouldn't be there, but you all would have a chance to discuss it.
You can be there.
I
Sitting in a
I may
different
be an
seat.
observer, yes.
Yes,
but
citizen comment.
The 16th works for me.
Okay. So there's a motion on the table by Trustee Codman to keep the public hearing open. Are you okay with it being until January 16th?
Yes.
Second?
So
Oh.
moved.
Okay.
Yeah. Second. All right.
You got that good.
Good.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a happy holiday.
Thank you.
You as well.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Next we move on to mayors and trustees announcements.
Oh, golly gee, we're just getting to that? Okay.
We did a lot already.
Who has any announcements for us this evening? I know you do. You're ready to go.
I do. I'm always ready to go.
Okay.
When it comes to announcements. Just a reminder that our emergency shelter is open for the season, Monday through Sunday. All you have to do is go in for an open door at 9 p.m. and a staff member will be there to greet you and onboard you. If the hosting site is nearby, the group will walk with that person to the site, and if not, you will be bused. For more information about how the shelter operates and the nonprofit and how it's operating in Ossining, I encourage you to shoot me an email. For those that are watching, there are many opportunities now during the entire holiday season from now until the end of February. If you feel so led to either host a dinner for up to 12 people, or bake, or provide some gift cards to some coffee places and local, Ossining spots, it would be greatly appreciated. And our residents that are temporarily there would love them. As far as events, tomorrow is a pretty exciting day in Ossining. We have our very own Miguel Angel Garcia, which is a up-and-coming awesome actor in California, and he is hosting an event called Give Back to Ossining. It's the New York premiere of the award-winning short film Tempstead, and it is to help raise scholarship funds for Ossining High School students. It's going to be at Ossining High School tomorrow night, 7 p.m. All proceeds from this event will go to a new young artist scholarship at Ossining High School to support graduating seniors who wish to pursue a degree in the arts. It's going to be a pretty decent event, and I encourage you to stop by to Ossining High School. Miguel's a great actor, and watch the full reel, I believe, on YouTube. So, and also tomorrow, the Ossining Chamber of Commerce, you're going to be seeing a trolley around town. They have sold out numerous groups to go out throughout the village to view our many holiday light displays. And afterwards, they're going to be going to the Boathouse for DJ, karaoke, basket of cheers, and a whole bunch of other events. And that's going to be at the Boathouse restaurant tomorrow at 7:30. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yes.
No.
Well, Friday is the 21st of December. It's also the darkest day of the year, but we're going to brighten everybody's day by having Make Music Day. And there's going to be performances all over the village starting in the morning. And the Organ Groove is actually moved to Friday night as well at the Lodge, so come by at 7 o'clock for that. But if you want to learn more about what's going on with Make Music Day, I believe the Chamber of Commerce is involved, and Mike Risco, and a whole lot of other stuff. So it's really going to be fun. There's going to be music everywhere, all over the village, starting Friday morning all the way into the evening. So I encourage you to come out and support live music, see live music. Recent study came out and said that if you see 2 live music events a month, it'll add 9 years to your life. So I encourage. Why do you think I do the jazz thing? So anyway, but anyway, it's live music is really important. It raises our spirits, and those artists work really hard. So definitely come out and appreciate some live music on Friday. Thanks.
Oh, all great things happening. I will say that everyone is invited to the inauguration. New Year's Day is Inauguration Day in Ossining by virtue of our village charter. Elected officials take office at noon on New Year's Day, and in some communities that's kind of goes by without notice, but in Ossining we make a big deal out of it, and we invite the community to join us for a ceremony taking place at the community center at 12 noon. There'll be music, there'll be inspirational remarks, there'll be refreshments. So please join us at the community center at 12 noon on New Year's Day. So that's 2 weeks from yesterday, I guess. We're all good? Madam Clerk.
Okay. Next, an administrative report from Village Manager Deborah McDonald.
Thank you very much.
Well, you know that I get very emotional, so Deputy Mayor, I want to thank you so much for bringing me on as part of this team, for your leadership, your guidance, your counsel, our monthly meetings. They have meant so much to me, and they've really helped me to grasp what this community is about and the people that are here. And it's such an amazing place, and I'm so grateful to you and the other board members who brought me on. And it's just very personal to me, and so I am sorry I'm crying. But I do want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I wish you all the best, and I look forward to having future conversations with you as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Okay, well, now that that's over, I want to just do a quick recap of the things that we accomplished over the last year. It really was a year of transition for us in many, many ways. We brought on several key department heads. We brought on a new building inspector, Joe Augustinelli, who was promoted in January. We brought on a new personnel director in April, Tanya Orr. We brought on a new recreation superintendent in April, Bill Garrison. We brought on a director of planning and development in August, Tracy Corbett. And we welcomed interim village clerk, Victoria Caffarelli, in June. So, welcome. When you think about the amount of change that we had in those significant departments, we still were able to accomplish quite a few things. And we do look forward to 2019 and all of the great projects that we have ahead of us. Some of the things that we accomplished in this year is we launched a new website, thanks to Jamie Hoffman. We launched a new interactive online recreation and park software program, thanks to Bill Garrison. We created an online tax payment portal, thanks to our finance department. And is he still here? He is. Tom Warren and Dale Ferrari. I said that wrong. I always say her name wrong. I'm sorry. And we look forward to more opportunities for being able to pay your bills online as well. We purchased a new fire truck for our fire department. And we completed a housing study for the ETPA legislation that was considered by this board. Some of the large projects that we did over the year is we began the Broadway Bridge reconstruction. That is underway, although a little delayed. It is progressing quite nicely. The design for the new water treatment facility is nearly complete and will be ready for bid soon, so that we'll be beginning that in 2019. The design for the improvements of the operations center, which is going to include an elevator, a new roof, record storage, and other renovations are underway and expected to start construction in 2019. And portions of all or some of the roads, 7 roads were resurfaced this year. And we were also able to do the real big one, which was Camp Woods. So thanks to Paul Fraioli for his work on all of those things. We did apply for 9 grants. Unfortunately, we have not been successful to date, but there are still 4 grants that are pending. We will be reaching out to see how we can improve our applications, and I do have hope that we can reapply and some of those grants can come to fruition at a later time. But I want to thank the team that put that together, because it was very quick and it was a quick turnaround, and so I think it was really important that we started to reach out for grants to try to offset some of the cost of operations. So I think that we accomplished quite a bit during 2018, given the amount of transition that we had in a lot of our different departments. And I really look forward to 2019, because our team now, I think, is very solid, and there will be a lot of things that we'll be able to accomplish. And in 2019, we will start our water plant. We will start the operations center construction. We still have a lot of roads to do. And I want to thank Andy and his team for putting on the website a roads map so that everyone can see what we've been doing and what we'll be doing in the future. And I just think that with our comprehensive plan update that is going to begin hopefully next year, there will be a lot of opportunities for our community to get involved and to start shaping the future of the village of Ossining. And I look forward to working with all of you and our community on those bigger projects. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, an administrative report from Corporation Counsel Stuart Kahan.
Thank you, Victoria. Good evening, members of the board. John, it's interesting to see what could happen to two AYSO referees. You know, one could be at the top and one could be sitting here. You know, I won't assign you to any games if you don't miss any games, so we'll work that out. Many moons ago, as we both know. 2018 was very busy. We have 8 local laws, and actually the board will be considering a 9th tonight for the SCREE and DREE program. The Corporation Counsel Office has added Lisa Ferguson as paralegal. She has been here now, and she's in her 2nd week. Please feel free to come up and introduce yourself. She is actively acclimating herself and has been of huge help already, and I'm sure she will continue to be. I do want to thank all the people on the 2nd floor, from the finance folks, Tom and Dale, and everyone over there, Debbie, Lisa Ferguson, my paralegal, and Jamie Hoffman. I also want to thank Sonia, who is frankly invaluable as the deputy corporation counsel. Folks don't see her at these meetings, but she does handle the parking ticket calendar, which I have done on a few occasions, and that is an interesting experience. She also does the building code calendar every Tuesday, and she is also our representative on the Landlord-Tenant Relations Council and is active there. And Sonia works very closely with the folks in the building department, and now with our new assistant building inspector and 2 new code enforcement officers, to get them putting together the appropriate orders to remedy and notices of appearance so that they can be in court and prepared to move. One of the things I'm looking forward to in 2019 is we now have the vacant registry bill law, which went into effect this year, putting that into effect and using that, plus working more with the abandoned properties law that the state has to deal with those particular properties that are out there. We call them zombie properties, but I think we all know which ones they are. There are various actions we can take both locally and through the court system to allow the village to have a much greater impact with regard to those properties. And I see that that's something that we will be able to do both at the local court level as well as, if necessary, the Supreme Court level. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay. And next, an administrative report from Police Chief Kevin Sylvester.
Mics are all doing it. It's not just yours. John, I want to start by thanking you for all of your service and congratulations, mostly because it's nice to have a little bit of extra free time now. I sit here privileged in this position because you sat on a board that put confidence in me. And from that time, you've supported just about everything I've done from there on. So for all of your support, for all of your service to the community, thank you. Tonight, I just want to quickly comment on Resolution O. I'm really excited to see that the board will be discussing giving authorization to sign the town IMA for policing services to the village manager to sign that. That is a project that is not only near and dear to my heart because it's the police department in general, but something that I've worked really hard on for the last 4 years. It's been a really great experience to be able to do that, and I hope that that's something that we can continue for many years, both from a public safety perspective and also saving money for the taxpayers. So that's really a rewarding experience. A couple things going on in the police department. Last week, we had Detective Bracero came to the rescue where a bank employee had let us know that a resident was there attempting to take out a large amount of money. He determined that there was a scam going on. This person was actively involved in taking her money out and shipping it to Miami to a post office box that was likely then going to be wired somewhere else, thus saving this individual $9,600 in cash that was in the box being ready to be shipped out of town. We did pass that case on to federal agencies, so we're hopeful that they're going to be able to take it and run with it and maybe get some resolution. But in the meantime, the fact that we were able to actually hand that cash back to a resident is incredible. So Detective Bracero did a fantastic job with that, and I just wanted to recognize him. Our initiatives right now are for traffic. I know that there's a lot of people concerned about things, and it's all year round, but right now especially. So a couple of areas that are going to be important to us that people should be seeing. An awful lot of cops are at the train station. We're asking that folks not spend too much time on the overpass up top. If you're coming eastbound to pick up your loved ones from a train, we allow people to sit momentarily to pick up from there. But on the westbound side, it should be dropping off and getting off the overpass in order to keep traffic moving in both directions. Camp Woods Road and our newly paved road, we're really glad that it's paved. We just wish people would slow down and stop for the stop signs. So there'll be officers up there, particularly at school bus drop off and pickup, morning and afternoon. South Highland Avenue, as I said to my officers this week, it may be the state's fault, but it's our problem. So we've had officers every day, both morning and evening, conducting traffic stops to try and encourage people and impress upon them that you cannot stop in the marked area in the middle of the intersection. So we're going to continue doing that until everybody gets the message. Hopefully that is sooner than later. We've issued quite a lot of tickets in the last week or so. Traffic stops are up by multiples, not percentages. This week, we also participated in Neighbors Link's pipeline program, where we're partnering officers with immigrant families in our community in order to help people become more comfortable and less fearful of law enforcement. That's taken place over a number of dates and a very rewarding experience. We got good reports back from both the officers and the participants that they had a good time with that. With 5 shopping days left to Christmas, we want to remind people not to leave their packages on their porch. If you can, have it sent to a neighbor who may be home, to an office place, or use a locker system. We do have a small amount of incidents of people stealing packages, what we call porch pirates, stealing from stealing from neighbors and residents. So we want to make sure that people, all their Christmas presents, in fact, do get there on time. To that end, we will have a program on Saturday morning with a very special guest who's coming, potentially with some gifts. We're going to tell more about that if you pay attention to our social media stuff. Likely Saturday morning around 9 a.m. there should be a live feed where we'll let everybody know, but we're going to be around town with a really special program that's mostly aimed at the kids, but we know that kids come in all shapes, sizes, and ages. Looking forward, the only thing we've got on the calendar going forward for now, our first Coffee with a Cop for 2019 will be February 9th at Starbucks. There'll be lots of advertisements for that. And that is all I've got for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Next, organization announcements. Is there anyone that would like to make an organization announcement? Okay. Moving on to village board resolutions. Is there
Mayor,
anyone?
before we
Yes.
do that, Andy is here with the gentleman from NIC Systems. Remember, they were gonna, we could.
We're going to
put
bump that
them
up. Oh, that's right. Thank
if
you
we
for
could.
reminding me. So which item is that?
There actually, it doesn't appear on the agenda. It would have actually been continuing business. We didn't actually put it down there.
Oh.
We discussed this last week.
Yes, no, you, yes. Thank you. Welcome, Andy, and guest from NIC Systems. This is something that we, as Corporation Counsel was referencing, we discussed it during our work session, but there were some unanswered questions, and we would greatly benefit from some clarification on what's being recommended here, because I know Stuart's working on the contract, and it's up to us to empower Debbie to sign it, but we're just not clear on exactly what it is and why it's such a great idea.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome.
I'm here with Ron Bergman from NIC. He's the owner of NIC Systems Corporation. Asked him to show up tonight. I guess I want to apologize to the board. I should have presented this last week. It would have been easier. I probably miscommunicated with Stuart, and it's my fault, so it's on me. So basically, when we go out to bid for the filter plant, whether it's 35 million, 30 million, 40 million, hopefully it's cheaper, we have to follow WIC's law. And the contract is broken into the general contract, the HVAC contract, the electrical contract, excavation, so on. Normally what happens, so everybody knows that the environmental engineering firm Hazen and Sawyer designed the filtration plant and they design the systems. But when they go out to bid, they have the general contractor look at the SCADA system and design the SCADA system. The SCADA system for the public is the supervisory control and data acquisition system. So it's basically the brains of the filter plant. And so what's happened in the past, I've started up 4 filter plants in 25 years. There's been companies that when it goes out to bid and the general contractor bids it, they over design it and it comes in way above the cost that it should come in. Also, the change orders are outrageous because there's not clear communication. So when we met with Hazen last year, we said, we'd really like a company like NIC to be involved with this, and we were trying to think this through, what makes the most sense. So NIC met with Hazen and Sawyer, and they suggested, why don't you guys really focus on the design part? Now, the key thing I want to say with this is to just start from the beginning. if the general contractor were to bid this work, everything we're talking about tonight, you would still pay for in the construction costs. So it's not like we're adding extra consulting services. It's in the borrow that we talked about. So the construction numbers would go down. So I want to make that clear because it's going to save money in the long run. I'd like Ron to just explain the services and the scope of work since he does this every day.
Thanks, Andy.
And welcome. Thank you for your patience.
No problem. Like Andy said, we're control systems integrators. We do the controls of filter plants, wastewater, drinking water plants. Basically, what we're doing is putting in the automatic control of all the systems. Along with that is what we call the application. In the handout that I gave you, I explained some of the terms, the application engineering services. And like Andy said, a lot of times if that's put out to bid in the contract, that the owners don't get what they want. So more commonly now what we're seeing on jobs that are going out to bid is the application engineering services is handpicked by the owner for a good reason. We were the ones who put in the original SCADA system at the existing plant back in 2005, and we've been servicing Andy since then, along with the remote sites. Along with Osning, we have several other customers. Aquarian Water in Connecticut uses all our services. Connecticut Water Company, Newcastle, the Millwood plant uses our services. We're very proud of that. Once we get in with a customer, they continue to use us because they like our expertise. Also, it's a big help with the security. Usually when we go into a plant, you don't want to go and have just anybody getting onto their network, possible infiltration of viruses into the system. So it usually ends up with only us and their own people getting into their systems. So there's a lot of different factors that are a big advantageous thing to go ahead and select the integrator for the specific project. We find that on a lot of jobs that we bid where we're not always the ones that are being the selected ones. It's very commonplace. Probably 80% of the contracts that go out nowadays, the application engineering service is bought directly by the owner, either directly to them or through the engineering firm, depending upon the customer.
Thank you. I think the big question that I'm understanding differently now than I did last week is that this is a piece of the project that is going to happen. It's just a question of, are we moving forward with this contract now, where we're going with the service that is the same company that is currently providing this service in our existing plant, versus the alternative, which would be to just leave it up to the general contractor and it'll be determined later on. And going this route, we have a little more ability to direct how this is moving forward. And we think if anything, we would save money, or we would at least know that we would be happy with the service. Debbie, you're nodding. I'm understanding this correctly. And that we didn't understand that last week. So that's new to me this week.
Yeah, I heard from Andy last week. He took the time to call me and explain, kind of what was going on here. And it's my understanding that we would spend this amount of money anyway to do the design. It's really, rather than having it embedded within the general contractor's total budget, we're deciding to use this particular firm because we have a history with them and we're confident in their work, and they've done great work for us in the past. And this way there's continuity really from the current system to the new system that will be designed and built in the new water plant. So, we're going to spend this money anyway to do this project, but now we're going to do it with a firm. And in a way, I think it's good that it's separate from the general contractor, especially because of the nature of the work that they're doing. We're talking about the computer systems that control our entire water and sewer system. And I just think that that's critical, that A, we have that confidence, and B, that we have that independence.
Does anybody else have questions or comments on this?
Yeah, I think what Deputy Mayor Codman said was key. The continuity and the timing of involving them at this stage of the project is really valuable, especially for you want them involved at this stage of the project. And just to clear for the public's understanding, and correct me if I understood this wrong, Andy, It's not an additional expense. It was already part of the contracting funds are part of the overall project budget.
So for my colleagues who have been here for a minute, typically when government does business, aren't we required to bid? Like, isn't there a certain threshold where we're required to bid? Is that yes or no?
I could ask Tom this question, but they're programming and they're engineering this system, and I think that's one of the services that allows you to pick a company like this without bidding it.
Professional services?
Professional services.
Are there heads nodding around the room? We're just trying to make sure we understand why this process is allowable.
Yeah, help me.
Just as we picked Hazen and Sawyer we did an RFQ, request for qualifications, brought in different engineering firms. We had the ability to just give it to Hazen and Sawyer based on their past experience. That's what we did there too.
But when you did the request for qualifications, other people came and said, "Hey, I'm qualified too."
I didn't do an RFQ. I called 3 engineering firms in. We didn't do an actual packet that we sent out.
Andy, I just said Tom is approaching the microphone, and Debbie is ready to go too. So we can get a little more process explanation here.
We have our corporation counsel here, but he was looking back at me. Just yesterday, we were actually working on updating the village's procurement policy, which is one of the items that's adopted annually at the organizational meeting. And in the procurement policy, it does list certain exceptions, such as professional services that are exempt from having to bid such services.
Okay. All right. Thank you for asking the question. Does anybody else want to chime in? Everybody help us understand.
If I could support this decision, I think that it's important that we utilize a company that already knows the systems that we have so that they can integrate the new and updated systems into the new plant, and it will be a seamless transition. What I have found in the past is if we bring in someone else who's not familiar with our systems, then it becomes an issue with implementation and installation. So I firmly supported Andy and Paul's decision to go this route, just because it is the right decision for saving us the most money and getting the plant designed and the systems designed during the engineering reports and before it goes to bid, so that we know exactly what we're installing.
Anybody else?
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you.
You trained me well.
All right, I think we're all kind of on the same page now. Now, it is not a resolution this week. It was going to be a resolution. So is this something that we can read into the record? Do we need to find last week's?
I can just do it for you.
Oh, there we go.
This is,
And get the paperwork to the clerk later for the minutes. Yes.
We'd appreciate that.
Why don't we do that if we can, as we're going through all the resolutions, we can do that at the end. Because I can read it, I can do it on right now if you'd like.
No, that's fine. I just
We're gonna do a
I just
resolution.
didn't want Ron to feel like he had to stay until the end. But if he feels confident that we've been adequately informed, thank you very much for joining us this evening. So we'll actually read it into the record during continuing business and vote on it near the end of the meeting. All right, and that'll give Stuart a moment to gather his thoughts. All right,
Okay.
Madam Clerk.
Yes, so we left at village board resolutions. Is there anyone that would like to speak on any of the resolutions on the agenda tonight? Okay, we'll move right into it. Approval of minutes, September 5th, 2018, regular meeting. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining hereby approves the minutes of the September 5th, 2018 regular meeting as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I'll just comment that this is an unusual date for us to be approving now, and for folks who didn't see last week, we discussed the fact that this was a meeting that had 800 pages.
Correct. This was the ETPA meeting.
Yes. So there were a lot of minutes to gather and put together, and then we asked for another week for us to have time to actually go through it and make sure that we felt that the comments had been reflected. Were there any amendments to the minutes? We're happy with them as presented.
So Who sent out the 800 pages?
What you received.
Okay, was
were the
it was an
minutes of-
annotated
it was
version.
actually- Because otherwise, what most of 675 of the 800 were submissions by one of the attorneys, including rent control in Sweden.
Okay.
And things like that. If you'd like that, Trustee Bazemore, I am more than happy to provide it to you. But the answer is, what you got is what actually was discussed at the meeting here.
Gotcha. Okay. Because I saw like the red. There was the names in red. There were
Right.
really no comments.
That's where you got that. That's correct.
Those were attached. Gotcha. Okay.
But we have them all if needed.
Okay.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Approval of minutes, December 5th, 2018, regular meeting. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby approves the minutes of the December 5th, 2018, regular meeting as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approval of minutes, December 12th, 2018, special meeting. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby approves the minutes of the December 12th, 2018, special meeting as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approval of voucher detail, December 19th, 2018. Resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated December 19th. This is incorrect, December 19th, 2018, in the amount of $464,851.65. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Finance resolution regarding unpaid water and sewer charges. Whereas the village treasurer has presented to the Board of Trustees a statement setting forth the amounts of all delinquent unpaid water and sewer charges in arrears located in the village limits, including penalties, with the identification of the real property affected. And whereas pursuant to section 11-1118 of the village law, such water charges are a lien upon the premises affected thereby, and whereas pursuant to section 452 of the general municipal law, such sewer charges are a lien upon the premises affected thereby, now therefore be it resolved pursuant to section 11-1118 of the village law and section 452 of the general municipal law, the unpaid water and sewer charges plus penalties as set forth in the submitted statement from the village treasurer be, and the same hereby are, levied upon the property in default and added to the annual tax levy with respect to such property. And be it further resolved, the amounts levied hereby shall be collected and enforced in the same manner and at the same time as may be provided by law for the collection and enforcement of village taxes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Resolution authorizing the superintendent of the Recreation and Parks Department to accept as a donation a Mitsubishi 73827 model 73-inch widescreen TV stand extra bold. Resolved that the superintendent of the Village of Austining Recreation and Parks Department is authorized to accept from John Tremaroli, 78 Orchard Road, Briarcliff Manor, New York, 10510, a donation of a Mitsubishi 73827 model 73-inch widescreen TV stand and extra bulb, and it is further resolved that the Village of Austining gratefully acknowledges the donation to the Recreation and Parks Department. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second, and thank you. To John.
Comments? I'll just say that, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Resolution authorizing village manager to sign contract documents for stop-loss insurance coverage and authorizing village treasurer to pay required premium to effect coverage. Resolved that the village manager of the Village of Austining is hereby authorized to execute the necessary documents to enter into a contract with QBE North America, 55 Water Street, New York, New York, 10041, for stop-loss insurance coverage for the village's self-funded health plan for the term effective January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2019, with a deductible of $175,000 at a monthly rate per enrollee of $9.83 per aggregate premium and $134.70 per specific premium, such documents being subject to review and approval by Corporation Counsel, and be it further resolved that the village treasurer is authorized to pay required premium to effect coverage. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Resolution authorizing tax certiorari payment for Palladino Inc. Whereas a certain tax certiorari proceeding was instituted against the assessor of the town of Ossining, the Board of Assessment Review of the town of Ossining, and the town of Ossining by Palladino Inc. to review the assessment against petitioner's property situated at 192 North Highland Avenue in the village of Ossining and designated as Section 89.11, Block 1, Lot 71 for the 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, and 2016 assessment years, which proceeding was commenced in the Supreme Court of the State of New York, Westchester County, under index numbers 57289/11, 67950/12, 67265/13, 67188/14, 68077/15, and 65321/16. And whereas the Village of Ossining ceased being a tax assessing unit in 1989 and now adopts the town of Ossining assessment roll for the Village of Ossining as prepared by the assessor of the town of Ossining for all subsequent years. And whereas on October 1st, 2018, a consent judgment was entered in favor of the petitioner Palladino Inc. against the town of Ossining, correcting, fixing, and reducing the assessed valuations of the aforementioned real property and improvements situate thereon as set forth in Schedule A, Annex Here 2. And whereas the aforesaid consent judgment, among other things, directs the Village of Ossining to audit and pay the petitioner the amount of all village taxes paid by the petitioner as taxes against the said erroneous assessments in excess of what the taxes would have been if the assessment made in the aforesaid years had been determined by this order. And whereas any and all refunds of taxes necessitated by said consent judgment are to be made without interest if paid within 60 days after service upon the village of a certified copy of the consent judgment with notice of entry. And whereas the consent judgment with notice of entry and application for refund was served upon the town of Ossining assessor's office by petitioner on December 10th, 2018. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining, upon certification by the village treasurer that all of the aforesaid taxes have been paid, hereby authorizes and directs the village treasurer to make the payment of such refund of real property taxes due to Palladino Inc. to Joseph F. Albert Esquire as attorney and agent for the petitioner as required by said consent judgment. And be it further resolved that the Village of Ossining, the village treasurer is authorized to make the aforesaid payments so the village may avoid the payment of any penalties. And be it further resolved that the village treasurer shall make a notation in the margin of the assessment rolls of the Village of Ossining that said assessments were reduced and payment of refunds of the overpayments of real property taxes was made pursuant to said judgment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Board. Madam Clerk?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Resolution expressing the Village of Ossining's support for Ossining Innovates. Whereas the Village of Ossining is an economically and socially diverse community, and whereas the Village of Ossining has an historic and rich tradition for developing socially innovative initiatives aimed at improving the lives of and well-being of all members of the Ossining community. And whereas the Village of Ossining Board of Trustees believes in inclusive economic development that attracts resources and increases employment opportunities for residents at all ends of the economic spectrum is needed to complement the village's housing policy. And whereas the Village Board of Trustees sees economic development as important to the development of an updated comprehensive plan, and whereas the Village of Ossining Board of Trustees is aware of the aims and activities of Ossining Innovates to nurture an entrepreneurial mindset and expand an inclusive form of entrepreneurship activity within the community. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village of Ossining Board of Trustees endorses the goals and activities of Ossining Innovates to make entrepreneurial skills accessible to the greater Ossining and Westchester communities. And be it further resolved that the Village of Ossining Board of Trustees declares its interest and intention to explore the different ways and channels through which the village government will support the Ossining community's efforts to become a center for inclusive entrepreneurship within the county, region, and New York State. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board?
Yeah. I guess my question is, did Ossining Innovates see the resolution?
This was actually,
This was their request.
They drafted it.
They
The only thing
drafted it.
Stuart changed was like the whereases and stuff. Yeah.
this was
Okay.
Henry Welton, Abigail provided.
Right, no, I remember that. It's just the presentation had named a specific organization, and it's not mentioned in the
No,
resolution, but
and I was wondering about that myself.
but if
they
this
spec-
is the
this
resolution,
specifically what they presented.
if this is what they're asking for, I'm totally happy with it. That's fine. Okay, that's all I wanted.
Q, go ahead.
I'm in support of a resolution as we discussed last week. But there's some interesting language.
But it's not saying E for all. That was what stood out to me. But I don't know. I mean, it's more broad and generic by just saying Ossining Innovates. That's the program that Ossining Innovates was promoting and was bringing to us. I'm not sure why they chose not to say that. But what's the interesting language you referring to?
I mean, so typically when we pass resolutions, pass them, right?
It's a symbolic resolution.
It's a symbolic resolution. You know what? It's okay. It's okay. You know,
Well,
what?
I need to know now.
It doesn't have to. It doesn't.
No, I think I understand. There are some mentions of some things.
Yeah, I mean, like
housing
in the
policy,
yeah, there's mentions of some things that
comprehensive plans.
these were not
Which is
things
kind
that
of
were
opinion.
discussed.
You know, socially innovative initiatives, improves in the lives of well-being for all members. Historic and a rich tradition. I mean, it just seems like this is a lot, and we were just talking about E for all. I mean, I appreciate it, but this is, hey, you know what?
I mean, it's symbolic.
You know what?
And I actually like the fact that it's more general about the current Ossining program that we have, because we don't know what's going to happen and where it's going to go. Hopefully, it's going to go somewhere. But that part I actually appreciate it, because that way we're not really endorsing a company that we just heard a presentation about last week. I mean, even though we know they're great, but I like the fact that we're just kind of endorsing the community members that are doing it currently and what they're doing and how great we support the efforts and how we kind of are pledging to learn more and how to partner with them better.
Good. I won't add to it because I think everybody's supportive of it. So, Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Adoption of changes to fee schedule for 2019 recreation and overnight parking hardship exemption. Whereas the village's adopted financial goals and policies requires in part the establishment of and periodic evaluation of user charges and fees to help reduce reliance on real property taxes. And whereas at this time, village management has recommended certain changes to the adopted fee schedule for 2019. Now therefore be it resolved, the village's fee schedule is hereby amended effective January 1st, 2019 for the following user charges and fees related to the recreation department and the finance department for overnight parking hardship exemption. And be it further resolved that all other user fees in the adopted fee schedule for 2018 shall continue in effect until and unless changed by resolution of the Board of Trustees. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board. Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Adoption of changes to fee schedule for 2019 water and sewer rents. Whereas the village's adopted financial goals and policies requires in part the establishment and periodic evaluation of user charges and fees to generate revenue sufficient to support the cost of the water and sewer funds. And whereas at this time, village management has recommended a 5.0% increase to water and sewer rates in the adopted fee schedule for 2019. Now therefore be it resolved, the village's fee schedule for water rates, and sewer rates is hereby amended effective January 1st, 2019 as detailed below. And that's it. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, comments on the board. Everybody knows I have comments on it. And I've had lengthy conversations. Tom was out of the office last week, but I did stop in and talk to Dale. We spoke about it at the last work session. The numbers that are being presented suggest that we will have a 5% increase this year and that we will be able to maintain it at a 5% rate increase going forward. I don't have other numbers in Ossining that suggest otherwise. What I do see is we're not the first community to construct a water filtration plant. And while we've been planning for this because that's a fiscally responsible approach, is to have an increase in water rates each year that does more than just accommodate for the increase in the rate that we're going to have to pay New York City for the water that we purchase for them, but also to build up our fund balance so that we can hopefully prevent water users from seeing a 10% spike, which is what we had anticipated might be the case. And now we're no longer anticipating that that will be the case because we probably won't get all $40 million or $30 million, whatever it is, billed to us the same year. It'll be spread out over 2 or 3 years. But when I asked Dale the question, what happened in other communities when they built a water filtration plant? What happened to their water rates? She hadn't looked into that, Tom. I don't know if you have or if you discussed that with her, or Debbie, if you have. In 1994, based on a New York Times article, Newcastle built theirs, their water rates nearly doubled. Which is why I was suggesting a 7 or a 6% rate increase now. And then the worst case scenario is we have plenty of cash in our account, and next year we have lower than a 5% rate increase. But we protect ourselves from having unexpected expenses. Because even while our water fund was being built up, we had unexpected expenses that we didn't end up going out for bond for. And you know what? We're always going to have unexpected expenses. That's part of managing a system that provides water for over 30,000 people. So I am somebody who really likes to hold the line on expenses. I really do. I talk a lot about our 0% tax rate increase, and I'm really grateful that we were able to achieve that again this year. So it may seem out of character for me to say I'd like a higher water rate than is being recommended, but I still do feel that way.
Thank you. So I kind of still, I mean, I have, my thoughts haven't really, I take my discretion and information from the manager and the treasurer. However, your points are valid, and I'm willing to compromise. I don't mind supporting a 6%. But I'm taught, and I firmly believe that, as a part-time elected official, I kind of like to give my full confidence to the staff that works full-time and is appointed to do particular jobs and functions. So thank you, Debbie, and Tom and Dale. But I'm okay with increasing it by 1%.
Oh wow!
Oh, now there's 6% on the table there.
So, philosophically, I definitely agree. When more expenses are incurred, you would think that rates would go up. However, there has been a great deal of conversation going back and forth, and I know it seems like for this year we're fine, and then probably the next 2 years there may need to be another conversation. To your point, Mayor Garrity, with respect to the New York Times article that you referenced, thank you for sharing. For that particular community, there were some federal regulations that the town of Newcastle at the time had undertook, and it was kind of controversial because it was something about stormwater and there was like a filtration thing, and town of Newcastle decided to do it, but then the other surrounding communities didn't do it, so they got government funding, and town of Newcastle decided to take it on the chin, and so the water rates went up. Now that article would have me raise the question: Are there going to be any federal regulations that we have to worry about? Where, during the process, we see anything coming from Washington, where during the process, we may have to change that plan. And if we can't foresee that, then that might be a reason to take into consideration, all things being equal, those anomalies. Now that I see that there's an openness to 6, or even a slight increase, I mean, I could go either way. I mean, I'm definitely fine with 5%. I do think that going years, following years, we definitely have a true discussion about water rate increases. Again, we've done 0%. I'm surprised every time we do a 0% tax increase because we definitely spend much more money each and every year. So I'm either way. Yeah, I'm either way. Where you at?
Well, I made my opinion known at the work session. I trust in the work of treasurer's office and the village manager's office. A 1% increase, frankly, is de minimis in terms of a dollar amount. It's not really, I mean, if you want to symbolically, I mean, I will not vote for 6%. Okay. I mean, but if you three decide that you want to, add another really basically $100,000 in revenue, if I'm not mistaken, it really is not a large amount of money. Um, I would prefer to see us pass the 5%, and next year we're really going to have a much better idea of what the cost is going to be for this. The engineering is going to get done. We're going to put it out to bid, and we're really going to understand what we're up against. And but I will be in the minority in this particular instance.
Well, maybe.
Well, maybe.
Let me just let me offer.
Well, based on what
Yes.
I'm hearing from everybody,
Yes, exactly. It's a living conversation. It's a good expression. So,
conversation.
so I will offer. Just looking through my notes from when I spoke to Dale last week, I asked her the average household what would be the cost differential between a 5%, 6%, and a 7% increase. It's between 5 and 7%. It was $6.68. $6.60 rather difference each quarter. So it would be $3.30, or I'm doing math badly in my head. So each quarter it's about a $3 difference between a 5% rate increase and a 6% rate increase. So it's talking about like $1 a month.
Listen, I'm fine with it. I'm fine.
Well,
with it.
three of us have to agree on something. Ah, I'm going to be the dissenting vote. Doesn't happen too often. Okay.
Are we voting on this?
Yeah.
Are we voting on it?
Yeah.
We're voting on it as presented.
As
five.
presented.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
So then move on to adoption of proposed local law number 11 of 2018, a local law amending chapter 271 taxation of the Village of Austining Code. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining has been considering the adoption of proposed local law 11 of 2018, titled a local law amending chapter 241 taxation of the Village of Austining Code. And whereas in accordance with New York State law and the Village of Austining Code, and having provided all requisite notice, the Board of Trustees conducted a public hearing on December 5th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. at the Birdsall-Fagan Police Court Facility, 8688 Spring Street, Austining, New York, during which time the public had an opportunity to be heard regarding the proposed local law. And whereas at the conclusion of the public hearing was closed. And whereas the proposed local law has been considered by the Board of Trustees, and it has been determined that there are no impediments to proceeding with the adoption of the local law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Village of Austining hereby adopts proposed local law 11 of 2018 as local law 9 of 2018, and directs that said local law be filed and or distributed in accord with applicable law. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Yes.
It is 9.
It is 9. You stated 9. It's typed 8.
Okay. And what is the law?
This is the screen tree, the senior
Oh,
citizens.
okay.
and
All
the
right.
disabled.
Shouldn't it say
Okay.
that?
All right. I just wasn't sure what it was. Okay. Thank you.
Can we amend it for it to actually say what it is?
Well, if you wish, I mean, section 1 actually says.
No, but like-
references, that chapter 241, article 6, tax abatement for rent controlled and rent regulated properties occupied. Okay, I thought it was loud enough. Section 1 says chapter 241, article 6, and it's titled tax abatement for rent controlled and rent regulated property occupied by certain senior citizens or persons with disabilities is added with the new matter underlined, and then it goes from there. The Trustee Herrera, generally what we do is we just reference the particular chapter that we're talking about, but the first section of the local law specifically references the scree and dree. Now, would you want it to instead simply say a local law amending chapters 241 and then put in what I just said?
Duly noted and all that's fine, but just, I mean, if someone was reading our agenda, they would not know that. They couldn't know that unless they actually went online and, it makes it a little harder to understand that we're voting on screen tree or whatever the matter what. So if we can add it and really be more specific on agendas going forward, that'd be
We
great.
can do that.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. So we're not amending, we're in the future, you'd be
Right.
more specific as, when there's reference to the code, we're gonna be a little more specific about
I shall.
what that code says.
Absolutely.
More descriptive so that it's easier for the public to understand what the actual purpose is. And that'll be reflected in the minutes. So at this point, it could just be reflected in the minutes what the name of it is, identifying it as.
And yeah, when it's actually
Well, I'm-
incorporated in the code.
Yeah, well, I'm pleased to vote for this. I think this is an important extension of ETPA and providing some help to those who have fixed income, either senior citizens and or folks with disabilities, so they'll be able to stay in place. So I'm looking forward to my positive vote tonight.
Anybody else want to comment on this? Further comments? Yeah, I mean, I was not supportive of ETPA. I still think there are a lot of more downsides than upsides to ETPA, though the intentions are excellent, protect tenants and to keep our community affordable. The program itself is deeply flawed, but this I like.
Amen.
This I like because this is to maintain affordability for the folks who are least able to increase their own source of income. It's folks who are on a fixed income. It's seniors. It's folks who are disabled who are below a certain income threshold. And I'm really pleased with the slight modifications that we made in adopting it. I mean, really, the only consideration was what do we do for the income level, and we are tying ourselves to whatever the maximum amount allowable is in New York State. So even though I don't support ETPA, and that's necessary for this I like. So this I will vote for. It's a little bit of a weird situation for me to be in, but I like
Well, now
this.
you're kind of supporting now, kind of.
No, I support Screen 3. I still want to vote against ETPA. I'll do it again tomorrow. But no, this I like. So, Madam Clerk. Oh, is everybody good?
Yes.
Okay, Madam Clerk.
Okay, Trustee Bazemore,
Aye.
Trustee Codman, Trustee Herrera,
Aye.
Mayor Garrity.
Aye.
Resolution authorizing the village manager to sign an intermunicipal agreement with Westchester County for E911 public safety answering point support and maintenance services. Resolved that upon review by Corporation Council, the village manager is authorized to sign an intermunicipal agreement with Westchester County for the provision of enhanced 911 services through September 30th, 2022. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam, comments from the chief? No? Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Resolution establishing a comprehensive plan update committee and authorizing applications for grants to support the proposed comprehensive plan update. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining wishes to engage in a comprehensive and community-based planning process to update the village's comprehensive plan, and whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ossining wants to establish a committee to assist with the task of updating the village's comprehensive plan, now therefore be it resolved that a comprehensive plan update committee is established, and be it further resolved that the Village of Ossining Department of Planning is authorized to apply for grant funding to support the proposed comprehensive plan update. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board?
Sure. This is very exciting. This is the first official action of the board. As you know, I think I'm pretty safe to say on behalf of the board and the new board next year that our main priority is really getting the comprehensive plan up and going. So fully supportive of that, and going forward, you'll hear how you can get involved.
The only thing I would say is that this is probably the most important thing that this board ever do. Is a comprehensive plan is basically your community's mission statement. It is the framework. It is the pathwork. I would hope that anyone who's listening, this is. If there's any time to be involved, this is the time, because going forward, we will pretty much map out what our community looks like.
Deputy Mayor Codman.
Well, having been through one of these before, it's a good thing to do. Absolutely.
Coming full circle. Yes, and just from a procedural perspective, we had a lot of conversation about exactly what this committee is going to look like, and is there an executive committee, and how many people, and that is still to be determined. But what we do know is that we need a lot of people to apply. And the first step is for us to establish that there will be a committee and then solicit interest and from there be able to provide folks with a little clearer expectation of what is the time recommendation or expectation. And this is a commitment that could be a year or two. So, but it's not indefinite, but it's not quick. So we still have some figuring to do on exactly what the committee is how it's going to be comprised and what we're asking of them. But this is the first step, and I'm delighted that we are moving forward with the first official step in updating our comprehensive plan. It's just the right time to get it done. We're coming up on 10 years, so I'm very pleased to be making this happen. And I'm very pleased that Tracy Corbett is with us. She's now been with us for 7 months, I think, and so she's kind of figuring out where things are in the planning department, and now be able to 4 months. Did you just say? Oh, it was Bill who was 7 months, I guess. Yeah, and now she'll be able to help guide us through this process using her lengthy expertise in planning. So I'm really pleased that we're at least taking this step for now. Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Resolution authorizing the village manager to sign the intermunicipal agreement with the town of Ossining to provide police services. Resolved that the village manager of the village of Ossining is hereby authorized to execute an intermunicipal agreement IMA with the town of Ossining with a 4-year term effective January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2022 for the village to provide police services to the town in accordance with the terms of the intermunicipal agreement, which IMA is subject to the review and approval by Corporation Council. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Well, comments on the board, and I'd like to hear from the chief, because I know you were instrumental in when you were a lieutenant in the one that you're currently working under now as chief. John and I voted on the one 4 years ago, and now it's been in place for 4 years. Folks will remember that the unincorporated town 4 years prior to that dissolved their own department. Then they contracted with the county, and then they brought it out and said, well, put it out for RFP. Can anybody else come up with a better deal for providing police services? And we, hands down, were the better choice. And, I think mostly it's working pretty well. So please tell us, Chief, looking back on the last 4 years, what do you think of this arrangement? And what can you tell us about the IMA?
I think it's worked out better than we had expected. Obviously, it was an intimidating prospect for us going into it. Excuse me. Still getting over this cold for 2 months now. It was a bit of an intimidating thing to get into because it was just something we'd never done in expanding a police department, and it seemed like a huge financial risk for us. But ultimately, it panned out and really seemed to be really good. It provides continuity of service for the residents of both the town and the village, where we've created, most importantly, quite a bit of trust. There was a big concern in the beginning of this of who would benefit more and where the officers would be. And I think we've shown that the officers are truly dedicated to providing a high level of service to the residents of the town, just the same as the village. We went to great lengths to take village off of as many logos as we could so that everything just says Ossining, so that it just makes one police department, because our officers do believe that there's no line between, other than the sector boundary lines, which they absolutely stay within at all times. But it's good. It creates jobs. It makes it a safer place, and it offers continuity of service, and we think that's fantastic, all while saving money for the taxpayers. So we're happy for this.
Comments on the board?
Yeah. What he said. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he covered it all.
Anyone else?
I'm actually very happy with this IMA, and I know the town is too, and the residents. I think it's a win-win.
Stuart, do you want to offer any insights in this? I know you were involved in the actual language.
Actually, and I want to thank the chief for this, there's really very few changes from the prior IMA. We did add a few things with regard to provision of police services in the justice court. But otherwise, other than the figures, it's pretty much the same contract as before. As a town outside resident, I can tell you that I'm always pleased with the work that's done by the department. When we've had to call, we've gotten a response.
A testimonial right here.
Excellent.
And so I will say that. But in terms of the agreement, it's essentially the template was taken from the earlier agreement. There were just a few tweaks that were made, but otherwise it's the same thing. So once we approve, I know that the town has this on for their agenda for next week to approve. They have a meeting, I think, next Tuesday.
Christmas
next
Day.
Monday, next Monday morning.
Christmas.
Wow,
Christmas
Christmas Eve?
Christmas Eve morning. Yes.
Man.
Well, but it'll all be signed, so
Now a
we're good to
federal
go.
holiday.
All right. Very well. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, resolution authorizing the cancellation of the cash bond maintained by the Village of Austining for Ginsburg Development Companies and authorizing the village treasurer to issue payment to Ginsburg Development Companies in the amount of $16,635. Whereas the village has received a request from SESI Consulting Engineers on behalf of Ginsburg Development Companies for a reduction in the current cash bond maintained by the village, which bond has been held by the village as part of the work performed on the Harbor Square project. And whereas it has been determined that the work covered by the cash bond has been fully completed, now therefore be it resolved that the village authorizes the cancellation of the aforementioned cash bond, and the village treasurer is authorized to pay to Ginsburg Development Companies $16,635, representing the remaining amount of the bond, and be it further resolved that the Corporation Council is authorized to prepare and execute such documents as are necessary to effectuate the cancellation of the aforementioned cash bond. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? I just think it's funny. We were actually referencing the bond that Ginsburg had taken out for Harbor Square when in comparison to the potential for a bond that might be taken out by Hidden Cove. This basic topic came up earlier this evening.
Right,
I don't know
I
if
should
this-
point out that this is the cash bond. There is still a performance bond related
Oh.
to Harbor Square, which is far greater.
Oh.
So that's a different bond. That's in the currently I think it's at around the $300,000 range.
Oh.
So that's a different bond. This is just a cash bond that we were holding for certain work to be done, and that work has been completed.
Things just never end, huh? Okay. All right. Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Fire Department appointment, Independent Hose Company number 6. Resolved that upon the recommendation of the Fire Chief, Wilson Ortiz, Austining, New York, was elected an active member of Independent Hose Company number 6 for interior firefighting at their regular meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board? Madam Clerk.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next, we move on to continuing business of the board. The first item is revision of the village's internship policy.
We also have that resolution regarding NIC, but we can do that in whatever order you wish.
The version that is in here
Is different than the later version.
okay, because we've had a few emails go back and forth. Okay, so but are we comfortable with the last email? Okay.
Yeah.
I think the intention was the same in every version. It was just the wording was okay.
And we do actually, if you folks are okay with that, I think we actually have a resolution to read into the record.
I'm fine with that.
To adopt the revised internship policy. So I'll turn that over to Victoria.
Okay. Resolution approving revised Village of Austining internship policy. Whereas the Village of Austining Board of Trustees previously adopted an internship policy whereby members of the Board of Trustees may utilize the services of an intern to assist the trustees and/or mayor with targeted assignments. And whereas the Village of Austining Board of Trustees discussed a proposed revision to the policy during the continuing business portion of the legislative meeting on December 19th, 2018. And whereas as a result of the discussion, the Board of Trustees directed the Corporation Council to make some revisions to the internship policy, and those revisions now having been made, it is hereby resolved that the Village of Austining Board of Trustees adopts the revised Village of Austining internship policy detailed below, and that the policy shall be placed on the village's website and otherwise be made available. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board?
Yes, I mean, I want to thank my colleagues. This is really expanding a program that's starting in the new year. And interviews will be starting with myself and village manager in January. So it's pretty exciting to see who qualifies. If you are a high school student, college student, or really any person in the workforce or in the professional world who wants an inside look in how local government works, I encourage you to shoot me an email, Herrera, that's HERRERA, at villageaustining.org.
All right, Madam Clerk.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Then we move to new business of the board?
Actually, let me just do the.
Yes.
I'll read, this is the resolution regarding NIC systems. And,
Okay.
Resolved that upon review by the Corporation Council, the village manager is authorized to sign an agreement with NIC Systems Corporation, 51 Belamos Avenue, Rocky Hill, Connecticut, for professional services related to the Austining Indian Brook Water Treatment Plant upgrade.
So moved.
Second.
Comments on the board?
All
Nice,
those in
nice
favor?
resolution drafting on the fly there, Corporation Council.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Next, a new business of the board. Okay. Renewal of the cabaret license for the Sing Sing Kill Brewery. Resolution, or is there?
You can read the resolution.
Okay. Resolution approving cabaret license for Sing Sing Kill Brewery LLC, 7577 Spring Street, Ossining, New York. Whereas pursuant to chapters 100 and 171 of the Code of the Village of Ossining Code, the authorized representative of the business Sing Sing Kill Brewery LLC, 7577 Spring Street, has presented an application to the village clerk as licensing officer for a cabaret license for live music, stand-up comedy, karaoke, etc. And whereas pursuant to sections 100-3 and 100-5 of the code, the village clerk has caused an investigation into said application, and after receiving the results of the investigation, the application has been referred to the Board of Trustees for final approval. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to the code, the Board of Trustees hereby approves a cabaret license for Sing Sing Kill Brewery LLC, 7577 Spring Street for 2019 as follows. Sing Sing Kill Brewery, days, hours, Monday through Sunday from 12 p.m. to 2 a.m. Type of music, live music, maximum numbers of performers, 8, karaoke, and stand-up comedy. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I am going to just push my seat back so I can physically remove myself from this. I am recusing myself from deliberation or decision-making because my husband is one of the owners.
Chief, I'm assuming we didn't hear from you, so you're good on this, on the renewal?
I have no objection. The only thing I can say about this is that, you know, we don't often, there's only been a handful of times ever where business owners have reached out to us to actually try and coordinate these type of things. You know, I myself was a little bit skeptical of how well this was going to work because of the close proximity of residents, but it appears that all that soundproofing has really paid off in what little bit of experience we've had. The officers here, you know, because they actually asked for extra attention to make sure that they weren't disturbing anybody, and the officers themselves said they couldn't hear it from the parking lot across the street. So I'm pleasantly surprised at how little influence it has on the neighborhood.
Okay.
Okay. All those
Madam
in
Clerk?
favor?
Aye.
Abstentions?
No, it's different.
Okay.
Recusal is not an abstention.
Recusing, okay.
I recuse myself.
Very good. Okay. Next, we have visitor recognition. Is there anyone that would like to address the board on any issues?
Our nice full room has emptied out in the last couple of hours.
Okay. So then, is there a motion to adjourn? Just to adjourn. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Absolutely. So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Well, no. Comments on the board?
Yes, I forgot to announce that you could still use your Ossining Bucks. And so for all those last minute shoppers, make sure to go on villageofossining.org. It's an extensive list. And for all those that are celebrating and observing, have a Merry Christmas next week.
And since you brought up Ossining Bucks are still available at Village Hall, Community Center, Chamber of Commerce, library, did you just say? Okay, so people, oh, the library's out? Okay, but we still have some at the Community Center and Village Hall. Oh, they're not? Just Village Hall and the Chamber of Commerce? Okay, so go to 16 Croton Avenue or I can't remember what the address is. 16 Croton. Yeah, not your church anymore, so I'm lost. I actually thought the comments we might want to make would be, it's John's last opportunity to comment as a sitting elected official in the village in his last, anticipated to be the last public meeting. Want to say anything?
Thank you for the opportunity to serve. You know, you know, and like I said before, this has been an amazing chapter of my life, and I was blessed to be at the table to contemplate and consider and legislate and do all the things that we do. And it's I have so much respect for those that take on the work, and and it's been my honor to work with all of you. So thank you, and God bless Ossining.
Thank you.
Enjoy John Codman Day tomorrow, as proclaimed by Mayor Garrity. So have fun.
Well, actually, I can't wait to see the county thing because they do that big thing.
Yes,
Yes, the marquee,
yes.
yeah.
So
I need
Friday,
to get somebody
yes.
to go and take a picture for me. So, because
I think
That
that
is
can
like-
be worked out.
okay.
I think that can be worked out. Someone will be in White Plains on Friday. Excellent. All in favor of adjourning the meeting?
Aye.
Aye. We never did. This is our comments about the last motion. All right, with that, there is no village board meeting next week. And everyone enjoy your holiday. Merry Christmas to all of those of us who are going to be celebrating. It's definitely a favorite holiday in my household. And Happy New Year to all. We look forward to seeing you on New Year's Day at 12 noon at the community center for the inauguration. And the very next day, we will be right back in these seats for our reorganizational meeting, which is always a big, important meeting of the year. And I know we're all looking forward to that. Thank you so much. This meeting is adjourned.